Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak. So, these feminist hijabis recently have been popping up on my channel, unfortunately, with some of their comments, and one thing that I really resent is how they say, I idealize stay-at-home motherhood, and they seem to neglect the fact that they idealize career first. And when they say higher education, right, I want you to think about something. That is a very elite-driven phraseology that is used by feminists in academia to shame, belittle, and minimize the role of a mother. And this, in and of itself, has led to women feeling inadequate in terms of competing with other women in the job market. And they see their kids as an inconvenience, which also leads to abortion. So when you hear feminist hijabis saying higher education, this means they think being a mother is lower. Because if you're saying higher, means there's a degree there. And one thing that always bothers me is when people call themselves higher than thou. Like we have a case system instead of each field overlapping upon each other. For example, let's say you have, let's do a very niche example, the baker. Well, a doctor gotta eat, right? He wanna have a pastry, she wants to have a pastry. That baker who bakes her favorite pastry in the morning that she gets with her coffee every day in her routine has a role to play in that doctor's life. Sure, it may not be brain surgery, but having a really good pastry when you've had a bad day and some comfort food can really feel good. And the aromatherapy as you walk into the bakery and smell raisin bread, fresh donuts, croissants, you smell this and you feel like, a little bit of a break, right? That baker plays an important and integral role in society. Not to mention how many foods they donate to the homeless, and all the foods they bake with love, and how much they give some of the extra bread to, the birds and squirrels and whatnot, and to the ducks, you name it. Even the ants. They have a role to play. The elite, higher educated people are not the only people who matter in society. Does a female doctor, Muslim, feminist, hijabi think she's more important than the farmer who grows the beans, the corn, the pumpkin, or more important than the crabber, the oyster shucker, the dairy farmer? Does she think she's so special because she's $80,000 in debt to Chase Bank and she got a little paper diploma? Sure, she saves lives, maybe, but a man can do the same. And plenty of doctors make mistakes, right? Plenty of courts are filled with malpractice cases, okay? Doctors are not infallible. Doctors can disagree. That's why you always go and get a second opinion. If you've ever had a bad doctor, I've had bad doctors, I've had bad dentists, it sucks. And then you kind of wake up to stop idolizing a lab coat. When you get a really cool doctor, sometimes they have the tiniest office, and they're not in the most fancy hospitals, and you appreciate them. The coolest doctors are the kind that come to your home and will accept your low-grade insurance. Those are good people. Now, what I really am starting to hate is how the feminist hijabi Muslims who have a mom and have a dad, who grew up in the Middle East with a lot of Islam, are gonna come and tell me as an American that a mother doesn't matter. It just boils my blood. Boils my blood because I had no mom and 2 bad stepmothers. And my grandmother had dementia and lots of mental trauma because her father used to force himself upon her and her sisters. So she had a lot of mental problems. She was a stay-at-home grandma. She never had a job. She did other things. We had a kennel. She helped run my grandfather's carpet cleaning business from home. She was a collector, and she would, sell vintage things on eBay, and she had her ways of making money, no doubt. She just didn't have a classical 9 to 5, but she still brought money into the family to help feed us children. Okay? But she wasn't necessarily very present. She would be up all night and sleep all day, and wasn't very attentive to my schoolwork or what I was doing, or never gave me any advice about being a woman or anything like that. Never talked to me about religion, or made sure I ate something, or even if I even brushed my teeth. That was part of her fault in life. She did take me in, though, after the government said I couldn't be with my mom when I was 3 years old. So I appreciate her for that, and she also took in my sister when the government took my sister when she was I think 6 months old, away from my mom, because my mom was struggling with drug addiction and was still in the sex industry. So may Allah reward my grandma for that mercy she gave us, so we didn't end up in foster care. But I am very tired of these feminist hijabis telling us rejected, abandoned children that mothers don't matter, and that we should idolize academia as if it's gonna solve all our problems and only give us happiness, and is like this magical Hogwarts place. And what's even more sick about these people who worship college is that you're literally falling for the spell that only knowledge and only validation can come from these universities. Overpriced, debt-ridden, heavily bloated curriculums, heavily regulated bureaucracies. They are the only arbiters of knowledge in the whole world. Till the end of time, it will only be them. This is absurd. This is absurd. You can have respect for certain professors, but not all professors. And every institution changes over time in their corruption, what they spend the funds on. You cannot just think every single class is valuable and every single teacher is good, and that every degree means you're more special than someone else. Yes, a degree shows dedication, it shows you competed, but there's a lot of corruption where, for example, I've had teachers who were full-blown feminist liberals who hated Trump, and if I ever said anything contradictory to what that teacher said, she could easily dock my grade. So I just had to sit in class, listen to her stupid spiel, do the easy test, get the A, and get out. I literally just repeated facts. Then I had better teachers who would argue with you. Those were pretty cool, but they would get in trouble by the school administrators for going off the bullet plan curriculum points. So, again, there's a lot of people who can tell you they wasted a lot of time and money and went on a faster alternative route. There's tons of ways to get educated now. That is why they invented the library. That is why there's private tutors. There's why there's a whole spectrum of how to earn money. I mean, there's women who are doing food review channels, eating different food, who rack in $5,000 a month, while a bachelor's degree graduate is working at Uber Eats delivering my food. So you have to look at the nuance. And to think that every college graduate is somehow a wizard, somehow really super smart, is ridiculous. And again, the dishwasher is just as important as the chef. And I know this, because if the chef doesn't show up, we can still get the menu, we can still cook. If the dishwasher doesn't show up, the plates literally pile up and the cooks don't have saute pans, and it's a nightmare. I've worked in places where the dishwasher wasn't appreciated, And the smug management, who acted very pretentious like they were better than everyone else, made everyone below them feel like trash. The dishwashers were illegal immigrants who didn't speak English, had no education, and were treated like trash by the college graduate, suit-wearing managers. Okay? I don't like elitism. I despise it. I am excellent at studying. Alhamdulillah, Allah's blessed me with a good brain where I treat every student like, hey, let's just discuss knowledge. I'm not intimidated by a PhD. I look at you as a person. Let's see what you got. When I went to Georgetown, they invited me to check out their campus to see if I'd like it. And I flew down to Washington, went and checked out Georgetown, went to the philosophy professor's lecture, and I asked questions in the class. He clearly got flustered, and he asked me quickly to name 4 empiricist philosophers, and he didn't give me a time to answer, and he cut me off, and he made an example of me in front of the class, right? Then when the class was over, I had my journal notebook. Yeah, I don't have it here next to me. But it's like a leather-bound notebook where I write notes. You know, those cool leather ones. And he goes, thank you for all your questions in the class. And I was like, okay, I see what this dude did. He's not a real teacher. He's just a lecturer. And if you think I'm going to pay this kind of money to go to this school to pay for the architecture, no, I'm not doing it. And there was supposed to be a private dinner afterwards. Instead, I got in the Uber, went back to the hotel, and then just ate at the hotel, took my flight out the next day. Didn't even stay. And this showed me a lot. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown me so much that even in these elite schools, when you test the minds of the teachers, a lot of them, they're so used to their authority that if you start to push back and pick their brain, they don't like it. And why I'm going to pay $50,000 to go and sit in a class and be forced to listen to somebody and not ever be able to contrary their point and have a real intellectual exchange, when I can do something else, learn on my own, and have real conversations with real people and learn far more. See, this is what I hate when people say higher education, as if they're the gatekeepers. They only get to say who's smart, who's wise, who's valuable. And it's like we're putting all these numerical values of bachelor's degree, how many PhDs, which school. We put all these values upon people to dehumanize them and to degrade them. And we remove the presence of the mother. It's so freaking tragic. Like when your kid's 18, go at it. Go to school part-time. Go to a community college. You know, there's so many ways to get some little classes and not neglect your child. It's so frustrating seeing these Muslim feminist hijabis who grew up in the East telling me as an American revert that moms don't matter and that, oh yeah, you know, when they get to the preschool, I can just put them into the school. It's like, if you think your kid doesn't need you anymore at 3 and 4 years old, your kid is going to be really bullied and get into some really abusive habits as they age. Because as your kid gets between these teenage years, there is so much temptation around them. On TikTok, gangs, prostitution, you name it, everywhere. And if you think that you pursuing your career for your credentialism, for your title worship, for your ego, for your bragging rights at the cocktail party, or bragging rights at the masjid, that is more important than guarding your little kid, you're a monster. And I almost hope you run into the real occultists and they reveal themselves to you. And then you see how you're helping them to get closer and closer and closer to your child. Because predators always come when there's no guardian. And a nanny and a teacher are not sufficient. Joe Biden just gave a speech the other day. It's all over Instagram, but you gotta get on like the Hodge twins. I don't do clips, but they did clips where Biden said, Joe Biden, literally told the American people that teachers also have a heavy role in the child's life, that the children belong to the teachers as well as the parents. He literally said, your children belong to the teachers as well. They're not just yours, he said. And again, this is the new feminist, liberal, secular, atheist ideology, where your kids are not just yours. They're part of the collective, and since they spend more time with the teachers than you, they should have more control over what they teach your child. Okay? This is why homeschooling is on the rise. And to be a homeschooling mom, you need to quit your career and put your kid first. Okay? There's so many moving pieces to what feminism and academia has put. If college was so special and they really wanted people to pursue it, why do they have to tie it to debt and high interest banking? Do you ever think about that? They need you to feel like you're special as you drown in debt, and then they'd say, we're going to make the housing market real high. They have all the little games they play. And then you got to go in debt for a car. You got to go in debt for a house. You got to go in debt for college. And now you have no ability to resist the government. No ability to govern yourself because you can't lose that job because you don't want to declare bankruptcy and ruin your credit, because if you ruin your credit, you're done. There's so many moving pieces to this. And so that's why I resent heavily people who abuse and mock and ridicule, shame stay-at-home moms, and that these chicks who think just because they studied this certain field, they're better than everybody else. People, when I die, inshallah, at my eulogy, my funeral, no matter their status, they'll always say I treated them the same, no matter if they had 4 degrees, 6 degrees, they were the head of their department, they were a janitor, they were a mechanic, they were a farmer, they were a fisherman, they were a lady selling flowers at the corner, whatever it is. I always treat people with the utmost respect, and I never think I'm better than somebody because I've studied more. Now, I can be proud and say, I love studying, but I don't do it for bragging rights. I do it because I like it. But having a child, and now being able to stay home, and not having to go to work, and earning money in different ways, this has been way more beneficial for me psychologically, spiritually. I get to do all my 5 prayers. I have way less anxiety, stress, tension, unnecessary conversations. My bosses were sure happy to have me there, but I wasn't happy to be there. And now it's like I get to cut off so much unnecessary pompery and formalities because I get to stay home. And I have a man who wants to be a man and provide. Okay? There are so many different ways to earn online. I share things where people can learn. There's just so many freaking ways now. Don't get me started. If you can't figure out a way to make a little bit of money on the side without going to a 9-to-5, you ain't trying. And you need to be creative. You need to be an entrepreneur. You got to get what you got to get. And you have to make sure that you're always there for your kid 24/7. Being a mom ain't a part-time thing. Part-time moms grow some pretty rotten children if they don't do a good job. And we already have prisons filled with poorly raised children. America is overflowing with criminals. Okay? We need more moms to take roles in their kids' lives. Okay? So if you're a feminist hijabi and you're thinking that you're better than a stay-at-home mom who prays, who fasts, who reads Quran, who has a garden, a farm, she has all her chores, she has fresh laundry for her husband, she's involved with her neighbors, she's involved in activities at the masjid, she's doing all kinds of things, and if you think you're better than her, just because you went to medical school or dental school, and you do none of the things she does, but you just think you're better because you have a diploma that outranks hers, I think you're a scumbag, and you should be ashamed of yourself, and I don't know why you hijabis are on my channel. You're worse than the ex-Muslims. You're worse than the murtads. You're worse than the kafirs. Because it's like, you have been given so much gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then you turn around and promote the same philosophy that is destroying America and has destroyed millions of children's lives, and to minimize motherhood, and to shame, belittle, degrade stay-at-home moms is what beasts do. Okay? Show me. Did Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, have a PhD? Okay? Did any of the wives? They didn't. And yeah, Aisha, I read a book on her. She studied a lot. She narrated a lot of hadiths because she grew up, from the age of 9 and then, 6 technically, and was around him. And then she narrated hadiths. Okay? And she kept learning and she kept being involved in Islam. But to say that, and she had no children. She had no children. So you can't use her as an example. If you're gonna not have children, well then, yeah, you can go study what you want. But you can't use Aisha as an example when she had no children. Don't tell me mother of the believers. No, I'm talking breastfeeding and giving birth to a child. Okay? And even then, she would have had, a totally different setup than the high interest banking secular, Yale, Cornell, UC Berkeley. Totally different. Totally different. She was like self-taught. Aisha was self-taught. She learned, and then people respected her self-taught diligence. Where she went and learned. She didn't have to take out a loan from Wells Fargo to become wise in Islam. She learned from the Prophet, peace be upon him, right? So using her as an example is very strange to me. Very strange. And Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, inherited her husband's money. And she gave it up. And she still tended to her children. Okay? It's totally different. It's really interesting how you start to perceive the lies of the feminists and how they twist your meaning and twist words. It's quite sick. If you don't like stay-at-home moms, get off my channel. I'm not going to defend you feminist hijabis who worship academia over stay-at-home moms because I care about children. I don't care about you. I don't care about your degrees. I'll take your degrees and feed them to a goat. I'll wipe my butt with it. I don't care. I care about protecting the children. Okay? That is what is important. The children matter more to me than all your degrees combined. And if you can't understand that, we're not on the same team. We share the same religion, but we're not on the same team. And you're not welcome here. So don't spend time on my channel if you don't like children and you don't like stay-at-home moms. Go find a feminist hijabi and stay over there and get out of here. You're not welcome.